How can one of the most legendary teams in Formula One leave a 7-time world champion furious in the middle of the race? What happened on that lap 31 that unleashed internal chaos at Ferrari? The morning of the 2025 United States Grand Prix dawned full of promises for Ferrari. After a catastrophic Friday in sprint qualifying, where the car showed one of its worst performances in changing conditions, Saturday had brought some redemption. Leclerc qualified third, Hamilton fifth, and the team was optimistic. From the wall, an image of control and preparation was projected, with a strategy divided among its pilots that promised adaptability. But what seemed like a meticulous plan was, in reality, an improvised structure supported by reactive tactical decisions. And that, in modern Formula One, is a recipe for disaster. From the start of the race at the Circuit of the Americas, the alarm signals began to go off. Ferrari chose to divide strategies from the first lap. Charles Leclerc, in an aggressive move, started with used soft tires, while Hamilton started with the medium compound, more durable but less effective in the first laps. The intention was clear: for Leclerc to gain immediate ground and for Hamilton to execute a race of attrition and control from behind. The theory was sound. But the execution, as so many times at Ferrari, was another story. The exit was clean, but it immediately exposed the fragility of the plan. Leclerc overtook Lando Norris in the first corner, fulfilling his part of the script. Hamilton, for his part, maintained his initial position without any major shocks. But as soon as the race pace stabilized, something began to go wrong. Leclerc's SF25, loaded with soft tires on an abrasive circuit and under high temperatures, began to lose performance much earlier than expected. By lap 15, he was already desperately defending against a group that included Hamilton, who was following closely behind with tires in much better condition. It was at that moment that the internal tension at Ferrari became evident. From the wall, there was no clear instruction to handle the situation. Even though Hamilton clearly had more pace, he was not allowed to overtake Leclerc. The team, instead of prioritizing the joint result, clung to equal treatment that, in practice, harmed both. The laps passed, Leclerc's performance collapsed, and Hamilton began to lose crucial time behind his teammate, unable to take advantage of his strategic advantage. Radio communication, according to paddock reports and cross-telemetry analysis, reflected a growing level of tension. Hamilton began to pressure his engineer, questioning why Leclerc wouldn't let him through. From the wall, the answers were evasive. The indecision was such that, when Leclerc finally entered the pits, he had already compromised Hamilton's stint, which came with tires at their optimal point. And the worst was yet to come. Ferrari kept Hamilton on the track until lap 31, in what many analysts consider one of the most inexplicable decisions of the year. Instead of taking advantage of the free track after Leclerc's stop, they decided to extend the Briton's stint to the maximum. By then, he had already lost valuable time behind his teammate, had degraded his medium tires beyond the efficient threshold, and when they finally fitted him with the soft ones, there was not much left to do. The track had changed. The overtaking margins had closed. And the advantage Hamilton had built with his original strategy was gone. All due to a chain of slow, poorly communicated decisions with erratic priorities that in the end, the fourth place obtained was not a catastrophic result in absolute terms. But it was a symbolic defeat. The car had pace for more. Hamilton had pace for more. But the wall once again fell short when it mattered most. And in modern Formula One, where differences are measured in tenths of a second and decisions must be made with surgical precision, there is no room for errors like that. The race in Austin was, without a doubt, a time bomb that Ferrari let explode in its own hands. The most serious thing was not the error itself. It was that no one seemed to learn from what happened in previous races. And that, for a driver like Lewis Hamilton, is simply unacceptable. Lap 31 of the 2025 United States Grand Prix will be recorded as one of those moments in which a poorly calculated decision exposes everything that is not working within a team. In a matter of seconds, what seemed like a race controlled by Ferrari became a perfect example of how a lack of strategic clarity can destroy an entire weekend's work. For Lewis Hamilton, it was the exact point where the frustration accumulated since his arrival in Maranello exploded. Up to that point, the race had followed a predictable pattern. Hamilton maintained a solid pace, taking care of the medium tires with surgical precision. He had executed each lap with admirable consistency, keeping his distance from George Russell and giving him enough room to attack in the second half of the race. The plan was clear: lengthen the first stint, ride soft at the end and take advantage of the lower weight of the car to attack. But all that fell apart in a matter of minutes. On lap 25, Leclerc's degradation became unsustainable. The Monegasque, who had started on soft, was losing more than a second per lap. His pace was plummeting and his position on the track no longer made strategic sense. Hamilton, from behind, watched as his teammates slid into the corners and blocked every possible overtaking point. At that moment, Hamilton radioed for a direct order: let him pass. But Ferrari's wall hesitated. They did not want to interfere between their pilots. They did not want to alter the internal balance. That indecision was the beginning of the collapse. Every lap behind Leclerc meant extra temperature on Hamilton's tires, loss of downforce in slow corners and early degradation. Telemetry showed that the Briton began to lose between 3 and 4 tenths per sector in dirty air, which completely destroyed the strategy window they had calculated. When Ferrari finally called Leclerc to the pits on lap 28, the damage had already been done. But to everyone's surprise, Hamilton was not called immediately afterwards. The team decided to extend its stint 3 more laps, until lap 31. According to internal statements leaked after the race, that decision was not the result of a master plan. It was an improvised reaction. There was confusion on the wall. Some engineers believed they could benefit from a possible virtual safety car that never came. Others wanted to protect their position against the Mercedes, who threatened with the undercut. In that lack of coordination, Ferrari made the mistake that changed the race. Hamilton, already with the medium tires completely worn out, began to lose traction at the exit of turns 11 and 15, critical points on the Austin layout. The car's sensors indicated severe overheating in the rear axle. From his radio, Hamilton launched a message that, although it was not completely broadcast on television, was recorded on internal communication channels. In a strained, frustrated voice, he demanded an answer: "Why are we still out? I'm wasting all the time we had." Lewis Hamilton's 4th place in Austin was not a bad result in strictly numerical terms. It was their best classification of the season, and at times their pace was comparable to that of the leaders. But in modern Formula One, table positions don't always tell the whole story. Sometimes, the most important thing happens outside the stopwatch. In short, what happened in Austin was not just a strategic mistake. It was a symbolic fracture. A reminder that, in this sport, trust is built with precision and destroyed with a single bad decision. Sometimes in Formula One, the moments that define a season are not necessarily the victories, the impossible overtakes, or the broken records. Sometimes it's the silences, the crossed glances without words, the frustration contained behind a dark visor. And if there is one thing that the 2025 United States Grand Prix left us with, it was exactly that, a moment in which it became clear that something deep had broken between Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari. Lap 31 wasn't just a bad pit call. It was an implicit statement. A message that said, without saying it, we still don't know how to win with you. And for a driver like Hamilton, who has built his career on demanding excellence, efficiency, and vision, that kind of message is difficult to accept. Because he did not come to Ferrari to fight for 4th places. The stability of Mercedes did not change due to the uncertainty of the Cavallino to participate. He came to win. To build a legacy that will definitively place him at the top of the history of this sport. And yet, what he found was a structure still trapped in its own demons. An organization that has proven to have pace, talent, and resources, but that continues to fail when precision is most needed. In Austin, Ferrari once again showed that it has one of the fastest cars, but also one of the slowest walls. And that combination, as powerful as it sounds on paper, doesn't win championships. Hamilton understood it that Sunday. He knew it not from what they told him, but from what they didn't say. Because of the radio that did not respond in time. Because of the strategy that did not change in time. For the opportunity that was not taken when it was within reach. And in that silent understanding, something changed. From that moment on, the Ferrari 2025 narrative stopped being a story of shared hope, and began to become an internal struggle to redefine roles, priorities, and responsibilities. Can a team like Ferrari react in time? Can he rebuild broken trust with one of the most influential drivers in history? Can Hamilton find the environment he needs in Maranello to return to the top? These are questions that, for now, remain open. But what is clear is that, since Austin, we are no longer seeing a simple season. We are witnessing a battle of identities. A driver who demands excellence, and a team that is still looking for its way through the shadows of the past. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.